just like when you pick up a pen and a pencil to create something, that matters, because when you do that, it brings something beautiful into the world, whether it's writing, whether it's art, whether it's a piece of clay or it's a piece of toy or anything like that. Anything that's creative is a great addition to the world. And I think a lot of people forget how important that is. For all those who haven't watched, Mike on our stream before or don't know who Mike is, I'm going to put him on solo for about 5 minutes or so. Let him introduce himself and get you guys to, get him to actually give you a blurb about himself, because he's done a lot of stuff, and I would do him injustice if I try to explain it. So give me a second, Mike, and I'll put you on solo.
Hey world, I'm Mike. I'm a writer. Took me years to even develop the confidence to say that with some backbone. I'm a writer, say it confidently. So Aro and I know each other because we've both been in numerous creative rooms together. We've been in performance poetry rooms. We've been in stand-up comedy rooms. We've been in live theatre rooms. We've been at visual arts conventions. What I do as an artist is I'm a writer. In the last few years, I've become known for specializing in horror fiction. What they call elevated horror is one of the main genre that I write in. When people say elevated horror, they just mean intelligent horror. And I'm also known for crime writing. This is an anthology that I had the privilege of getting into last year. It's Dark Deeds Down Under Volume 2. It's a Trans-Tasman one with all of Australia and New Zealand's best crime writers in it. So I've got a real interest in genre writing that's got lots of conflict, lots of life and death, lots of people screwing each other over, with plenty of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So now I've come across Aru's radar in the past week because I'm just about to finish up crowdfunding on Boosted for a novel called Glass Barbie. It's a black comedy buddy cop road trip crime thriller, and she's been a bit of a hard road to getting it towards the end, but we're going to do it. Aru and I will talk about crowdfunding shortly, hopefully. Now, this book, it got a bit screwed over by one particular publisher who expressed very strong interest in it, and then they just got cold feet, and took a while to make it clear that they had got cold feet. So I was frantically doing rewrites for them, and by the time I handed that stuff over, they were like, "Oh yeah, nah, thanks, but no thanks." And then my so-called literary agent said he was going to publish it under his own imprint, and then after a year of nothing happening, he had all these excuses, and then he politely declined because he said that even though he loved it, his assistant editor wasn't into the book. Yeah, New Zealand, there's not a lot of money in creative writing in New Zealand. There's a little bit. Our standards can be really high, which is cool.
Right.
But yeah, we can talk about that. But hey, as an artist, you soldier on, don't you? Regardless, and you're a loser if you give up. Yeah.
Well, everybody says I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. It's like the little kid who looks at the painting of I think was it Matisse or was it Picasso or somebody, and he goes, "Oh, I could do this," and then you go, "Well, why don't you?" "Oh, I just don't have the time. I don't have the motivation. I don't feel like it. I don't have the resources." All the excuses come up, right? And that's it. It's kind of like when you get to a level where you go, "Yes, I am an artist," it's when you realize that I have the dedication, I have the or the writer, right? I have the dedication to this now. I am going to put myself into this and call myself that. Now I've got to live up to that. And like you said earlier, right? I mean, what made you get in, feel comfortable about calling yourself a writer? What was that point?
So 2004 to 2008. So I'm 40 now, and when I was 20, as an undergrad student studying English at University of Otago down in freezing Dunedin, New Zealand, I was surrounded by much better writers in my poetry and literature classes. We ran a poetry zine together. We put on performance nights. I wasn't terribly good at any of these things, but I was enthusiastic. I kept up. I read the work of my very talented peers who were off winning competitions and stuff. I kept up with reading the William Burroughs and the Jack Kerouac and the Allen Ginsberg and a lot of beat poetry and and then I've got this memory of when 2008 I was new and fresh in Auckland and I was only about 23 or 24. And I can remember being at a party and I was friends with nobody there. I was totally out of my place, and all the bros there were having a much better time than me. And got this memory of one of them saying to me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, I'm a writer." He goes, "What? You're a writer?" No, writer. And ever since then, I've been saying it with more confidence. And you get to know over the years that writers are, and you'll find this in just about every culture, writers are treated with a lot of deference, a lot of respect. So the onus is on us to actually do a good job. You're not a good person if you go and say you're a writer and then you're not putting in the hard work. But I think I got proof that I'm putting in lots of hard work, putting out a book a year, entering lots of competitions, mentoring lots of other writers.
Yeah, and I think that's what it really is, right? You put in the hard work, and I think I've watched a lot of people like try to take it the easy way, and then I don't know what it is. It's like they feel like I'll just put it out there and nobody likes me, I'll walk away from it. Like it's like that's not how you approach any workload. Imagine going to work and going, "Yo, I'm going to show up today, and if I suck at it today, I'm not going to come back to it," And I think a lot of people don't realize the artist mind is like the creative mind, right? It's something that's very weird, very it's always changing because it's always changing, and people always, that's why they go, these are the arty farty type people. I stay away from that, but like it's the whole trying to understand what is an artist. It's difficult because every artist comes from every background, but all of us have this innate need to create, right? Whether if it's creating a design for a car, or if it's creating I don't know, like turning a wood, right? A wood turning, piece of friggin' amazing work. The reason I say that is because last night or early this morning I was watching wood turning. Some of the stuff these people are doing right now blows my mind with resin, dude. Like pencil, using coloring pencil to wood turn, because they've gotten to where, hey, I've done all this with wood, but what if I use other things like fluffy balls, right? Like, what you call it, like metal. What if I add that to that? What if I use glass? What if I use broken glass? What if I use marble in my wood turning? I'm like, it's an innate concept to go beyond what you're doing. And I think you, as a horror writer, as a comedian, as a poet, you're bringing all these different things and life experiences or learning, right? And we'll talk about learning as well, because I think that's something important, actually putting your time in to do the hard yards, as we say in New Zealand, to actually go into a room and study and learn from someone on how to be better at something. And I think a lot of times people don't want to do that. They just want to go out and do it. I remember doing that myself. Like, I'm just going to go create, but not knowing the rules on how to create what I'm creating, or how a clay works, why the clay works that way it does. I'll just put it together, right? So tell me about your thinking process when it comes to coming up with an idea.
Firstly, I just wait for something to hit me, and when a strong idea that's worth turning into a piece of art hits you, you should definitely write it down. I'm one of those people who's always writing notes on my hands and my wrist and the back of my hand. And if you can't write it on yourself, write it on paper, write it on your cell phone, definitely. Email a piece of inspiration to you. Because, strongest ideas will come to you when you're in the supermarket, when you're at a party, when you're walking your child to school and they say something poignant, when you're playing poker with a bunch of mates around the table. It can strike in the middle of the night, strong creative ideas can hit you anytime. And then what you have to do is see if the idea is something that you can turn into art yourself.
Right.
So say if I get struck with an idea for a great oil painting, that's not the best thing for me because I don't really paint much. But yeah, great sort of thing to write down and tell a friend about. Or if I get struck with an idea for a great photograph, if I drive past something that is really, gonna be a beautiful work of art when it's caught on camera,
Right.
yeah, I'll make a note to come back to it and try and find the right conditions to photograph it.
Right.
Yeah, so you've got to make sure that creativity doesn't get away on you. It's a huge thing. Otherwise, you'll be all out of ideas. You'll have a cell phone that's just empty of ideas, and there'll be nothing on your hand.
So, how often do you follow through on that idea, right? So I know that, like, for myself, like, I come up with like ideas randomly all the time, whenever, just like yourself, right? Because that's how our brain works. We don't like sit down and go, now I've got an idea now, and and it's not like a timetable. You clock in now, the idea works. So when you're getting random ideas, how often do you follow through on them, or when do you decide this is the one you follow through all the way to the end?
I write everything down, and often I'll have folders. I'm looking at folders on my computer right now, where it's one folder is just called Third Horror Story Collection, and it's got all these. Mostly, it's got a lot of empty Word docs, and the Word doc just has a few words, a kernel of a story idea just in the title. What's an example? Horror collection. Oh yeah, here we go. Third Horror Collection 2023 to 2024. So just a few words. If your mind works well, you can compress it, pack it down like a tent, or like, I don't know, origami or whatever metaphor. And later on, just add water and the thing should grow. What's an example? Arc of Descent. There we go. Horror story idea. Arc of Descent.
Yeah.
So I can see in this document is going to be a story about a journalist who falls from grace and is exiled and has to leave the Herald and leave Auckland and go work in Sydney or Serbia or Slovakia or Hong Kong or has to try and rebuild themselves. But that particular idea, and it's only just a couple of sentences, is trying to see if I can make a horror story out of that. And so, Ari, you're asking, where does creativity come from? Well, it's your best creative ideas should be an extension of what you're seeing and feeling every day. So I'm a journalist. My work is patchy. It's on and off, but I'm a trained journo. I've written a lot of news in my life. And so taking that field, taking that realm and turning it into a work of art is going to be good. So I'm going to write something really effective, and readers are going to be interested to know what the journalism world is like. So for other people out there, if you're ever stuck for creativity and you love gardening, you should find some creative ideas come out of your garden. If you're a visual arts person who puts things on paper or the screen, you should find creativity comes out of that. If you look after your father who's got Parkinson's disease, you should find creativity comes out of that, no matter what the medium is. And I'm saying that because two of my mates right now have dads with Parkinson's disease, and it's a challenge for them. It's a lot of work for them.
Yeah.
If you're a teacher, you should. Lots of teachers are creative. Teachers can always come home and write a story or a play or an artwork or a comic about what happens in the classroom, whether you're spinning it as comedy, drama, horror, romance, whatever. Readers, the audience will be fascinated by that. We're all curious about what it's like to be a teacher. So creativity should always come out of an interesting life.
It reminds me of Grange Hill. I'm not sure. Like, you're about 10 years younger than me, right?
Yeah. What's Grange Hill again?
So Grange Hill, this is like, I'm at high school, like at college, watching college students at school and their teachers in England, right? So way back this is back in the 80s, Grange Hill. Now, there's a lot more TV shows about like elementary school teachers and all that. But back then, Grange Hill used to be the only thing that we had to do with teaching in New Zealand. So let me find this better here. IMDb, one of my favorite friends. So this is Grange Hill, and it's, I'd come home from school to watch this thing about school. It's like the craziest, silliest thing you could think of. This is way back in 1978 and went for what, 50 years? No, 30 years. Yeah. So this is, I guess this is back in the, like, hold on, that's the wrong one to play because it's about like when I had computers. But so can we go away now? So it started in 1978, right? England. And so it's hard to describe because it's been so long since I've seen it. It's got to be like the mid 80s since I've seen it, but yet talking about it, right, popped into my head. So school lunches is a new thing in New Zealand, right? Provided stuff like that. But like all the way back, you had the school that it's just this weird thing that they used to have. Like it felt like such a strange thing to be watching, coming out of school and watching school, but it was England, so you're like, oh, is that how English people were? Students behave, and it's like, oh, this is how the other world lives, so it was okay to, but nobody really thinks about watching other students while you're a student. However, like an anime, right? An anime and manga right now, it's the biggest thing. Because like, the people who are reading them, like Shonen Jump is Shonen, sorry, is like the 13 to 18-year-old age group. And so in the manga, there's always about student age, like 17-year-olds, 16, 17-year-olds are the stories. They're the main protagonists, antagonists of these stories. So you get to read about, their school life, what they call slice of life, right? There's a specific term and genre that the Japanese have for for that sort of thing, slice of life, like everyday life, right? So when you're talking about like, because knowing you're hanging out and teaching people and teaching, running these courses, writing, how many of your students as such are teachers that come to you to kind of like try to express themselves outside of the classroom in that way?
Yeah, a lot of teachers want to give creative writing a try outside the classroom. Tracy, Atafai, Jody, I'm thinking of people down in Auckland. One of the busiest poets, Tim Heath, who used to come to Poetry Live, slam poetry every Tuesday night on K Road. He was a lifelong teacher and principal. Yeah. Mm. And of course, our man Stephen King. How many of his works are wrapped around high schools? So many works. Yeah. High schools, high school kids, adolescent things that,
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, I mean, people that like young people get into horror, especially at a young, like around the mid teens, later teens, right? Because that's when you're sort of coming out of that whole kind of like that safe young adult sort of thing stuff. And now like Maze Runner's in my head now because like I'm thinking, yeah. So you come out of that whole I don't know what's the kind of like the commonality between like young high school is what they call it in America, middle school, right? 13, 14, and then you jump on to the next level and you like, hey, now I want to read Stephen King, now I want to read Maze Runner, now I want to read Hunger Games. It's quite a pretty fast jump from like, I don't know, reading that other book and then now you're reading this. Do you guys kind of like discuss, especially with the teachers in there, how the changes and how to write for that young adult crowd, or that sort of like 15 to 18-year-old?
No, in fact, I wonder if anybody else out there in New Zealand has specialized in writing for young adults. It needs to be done. The heartbreaking thing that you learn as a writer is so many people try and write for new adults or young adults when they are far removed from their age. And probably the better writers will be in their 20s. writing for the younger people. So many successful authors are in their 50s and 60s when they are trying to write about young people at school, and that's just not a good match. That's not realistic.
Well, I mean, back in my day, right? Let's say 80s and 90s, there wasn't anything for young students like high schoolers to get into learning how to write, right? Nothing special. Hey, here's a competition for this. The only thing you could think of was like poetry, right? Just go write a poetry and maybe they'll get into some, the school journal type thing they used to have back then. Right? Or that's it. There was nothing like we have now. Like I noticed there was like a whole writing competition recently, like a high school writing. Yeah, and you had heaps of awards and stuff for that locally, like in Whangarei and Northland, there was like awards there and prize money being offered to young writers. That's something huge in the last decade or something and you're like saying 20-year-olds, that's when they should be writing because they've just come out of high school and they can write about high school. But and then you're writing at 50 years about high school. It kind of doesn't work. But that also, I mean, it's like actors who are like 30 years old playing 20-year-olds, right? Or 18-year-olds or 15-year-olds. Because it's kind of like you can look back and say, oh, that's how they behave. But they're still freaking 30-year-olds. They're not teenagers. And that's, of course, for safety reasons, right? Because they have to do some weird, sometimes they do some sexual material in there's some movies, and you don't really want to have the age group doing that in those movies. But I wonder, do you think, are you teaching younger students, high schoolers, for writing courses and stuff like that? Or how are they receptive, or are they receptive to being taught how to write?
It's been ages since there's not been a lot of teaching creative writing to youth this year. Having said that, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went back to my old high school and ran a poetry workshop for half a day. They liked the poems that I read from my collection, Loudmouth, Page and Pub poems, so that was cool. And what's weird is I self-censored. They wanted me to recite a poem called Waiting for the Bell. And I was like, oh, this is a bit too spicy. It's got... And I would have read it to them if there was no teacher around. But, I think the teacher would have knocked.
What was the age group?
They were year 9 and 10, so 13 and 14.
Yeah, I mean, we can say they hear a lot worse out there, but then that doesn't mean that we should be doing a lot worse there, right? Yeah. And I think, self-censoring is important, especially around kids. I think a lot of people don't understand that, and they think it's like I just said, like they hear that out there all the time. They talk about them, but that doesn't mean that you have to, do the same thing around them.
We could expand on that, Aru. We could talk about the first time you encountered something in art, whether it's film, book, music, or something you saw in a gallery or on stage. We could talk about the first times you encountered things that shocked you and how that seared into the memory. That'd be a really interesting discussion if you want to talk about that.
Let's do that.
Because what's initially just shocking to us, such as, plenty of the stuff in this horror collection, with more exposure to it, you become more desensitized, and then you see how there's beauty within the shocks. But I can probably instantly name examples of paintings, films, music, plays, stuff like that were really shocking, and that didn't realize that stuff was out there in the world until I saw it. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember the reason I would never listen. I mean, it took me years, a decade or two before I actually listened to Slayer, even though that's the type of genre of music that I love. But because of the stuff on that cover, I was just against it. Like one of my best friends was listening to it at the same time where he's listening to stuff that I like, Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax. He's listening to Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, Testament, right? But because of what was on their cover, I was like, I don't like these guys. They just make me run away from it, cringe at it, because it's but I love that music. I love Slayer so much now, right? Because it's just the artistry and the talent and the skill and the writing of the stories in those lyrics are such amazing, high level, right? The big four, big five, whatever you want to call them. But what you're talking about, I remember watching Evil Dead like for the first time.
Hmm.
Shocker. Now I just don't find that shocking. What I do find shocking is Terrifier 3, having to close my eyes to certain things because I'm like, I don't need that in my life right now, right? I just
Damn.
don't. It's like I don't need that right now in my head. Even though I know it's plastic, even though I know it's silicon, even though it's like it's sauce, even though it's just liquid, it's nothing real in it. Yet, because visually, I'm like, yeah. But I'm also writing horror as well. I'm doing a couple of horror comics at the moment. But I'm still going when I see something visual, right? Because like as a writer, you're with your skill and your talent, you're visualizing through words, right? And that's something I want to talk about as well, how to visualize through words. And you're doing that through text, whereas I'm like going, how do I show this through the actual visual narrative of the comic, of a still image? And there's some things that like I remember like writing a teen plus comic book, Zealandia we got coming out, and one of my artists basically depicted what I wanted, and then I realized this does not belong, talking about self-censorship, right? This does not belong in a teen plus book. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, we're going to take this one panel out because it ruins the whole thing just by having that one thing in it. And it visually in my head, it was kind of like a comedy piece, yet seeing it just was like, that's so cringe. Plus it's also disgusting seeing it. Right. But if it was an if it was an R18 book, which I do, then it's fine. It wouldn't matter because it deserves to be in there. But like, because you're writing for like, you're doing comedy, you're doing so many different things, right? Going from horror all the way down to just like a slice of like cop thriller, right? With the Glass Barbie. Do you like talking about censor? Do you like censor yourself between the books like myself, or are you just going, this is me, this is what I'm doing? Or do you age restrict?
What I'll say is, over the years, I've become very aware of what will turn off audiences. Audiences like being thrilled. They like to be exposed to provocative things, but provocative has a limit for different sensitivities. So you'll have a better time as an artist if you're aware of that. And the better you get at writing, the better you get at learning the politics between characters and what you create.
Right.
And I've really, really learned this from writing films. So I've written about 4 feature film screenplays over the last couple of years. And and producers and screenplay assessors, they're really harsh. They'll discard your work in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But from that, you learn, you definitely learn the art of making your heroes likable. So it can be like Sin City, where everything is painted in shades of black, everything is noir, and your hero is really, really black, like, they're what they're up to in the world that they're in. But the people working against them are even blacker. So, and that applies to any work of art. How did I get onto making this point? So, the point being that, learning the art of getting the audience on side with your hero is hugely important. So you can have your hero do shocking things, violent things, provocative things, ugly things, but you can keep the audience on side with them if you work hard to do that. And specifically how you do that is different in each case, whether it's making your hero rescue a kitten, rescue a dog, rescue a cat up a tree, whether it's making your hero do something generous for a stranger, whether it's nice, there's Marv, whether it's inflicting a lot of misfortune on your hero and then having them rebalance the odds, settle the score.
So, because if you look at Marv, right, like he's more of an anti-hero, right? How do you like right now? People are like trying to make evil characters likable, right? Like Quilla, is it Quilla Delville, like from like the puppies thing?
Cruella, yeah,
Cruella
101
Delville, right?
Dalmatians.
So someone who's, for the lack of a better word, skins animals and wears their skin as a coat, you want me to, you want me to like them. Like, what kind of monster are you that you're going to tell me, write a story that's for kids and tell kids that you should love this monster? And it's this whole, I find that kind of offensive when people do that, because you like, there is grays and there's black and there's white, right? So you know that this is the evil guy, this is your hero, and this is the in-between person who's an anti-hero kind of thing. But I don't like the new modern idea of like merging and making every evil person likable, like Joker. Why should I like the Joker, right? Because, I mean, I can understand his plight, but I don't want to like him. He's still the friggin' evil person that he is, right?
The screenwriters would like to convince you that the world is unfair and Arthur Fleck has suffered such acute misfortune that he deserves the right to settle the score and balance the books. Yeah, and you're right. There are lots of it's been a trend in films going back and making origin stories for these anti-heroes. Yeah, Cruella, as you say, Wicked, the story of the Wicked Witch of the West is about to hit us. Joker is a great example. Lots of these things. Loki gets his own series.
It's kind of like trying to like rewire our brain to think that the bad people are good people, right? There's something that causes like the point of like escapism is not to humanize the fictional characters, is to make us escape, and like to keep the characters there in that little, four square thing that's called a book or a film, or the screen, right? I don't want to be like going to watch something and realize that, they want to convince me to like evil. I'm like, no, thank you. I know what's evil and I know what's bad because I've experienced it. But I don't want to be a person. I don't want to be told that this is the reason these people are allowed to act that way is because something happened to them and they have no self-control. Right. Yep. So you should have no self-control either. It's like, because that's basically what it says. It's like, if somebody treats you badly, you should do so in kind rather than be the better man. Like we used to be taught, right? Be the better man, rather than just be like them as well.
Yep. Audiences have deeply embedded morals, and some things go really deep down, and you can't mess with them. And I haven't watched the Terrifier films, but surely Artie the Clown has some reason why we root for him. These people that he murders have been dicks to him, or he's been treated badly, or I don't know what it is.
He's a demon, so there is no, that's the thing. He's a demon, so there's no rooting for the demon, right? I just want to see him get his uppings by the kids and the kid's dad and whoever, because evil should be punished, as far as I'm concerned, right? But I mean, that's the way, But like the fact is that like, we should elevate heroes, right? I think that's the thing that we stopped doing, is we stopped trying to elevate heroism. And that's I was going to ask you next is like, how do you make your put depth and character into your protagonist, whoever he may be or she may be, right? Or they may be, right? And a hero can be whatever gender they want to be. However, at the end of the day, there's a black and white to all of it, so that you understand why they do what they do and the reasoning behind it and what makes that character work. I mean, your characters are quite real normal people, right? Going through their day and fantastical things happen to you. The one I remember was the one about the Drive, right? That whole the ones you read out, because I tendency not to read novels anymore. When I was young, right, I would be like eating it up. I'm surrounded by books, right? I mean, I'll be like novels every day, reading all the time. Now, because I don't want other people's words in my head when I'm writing, I try to stay away from stuff. But when I remember listening to you read the two stories you did at at the Butter Factory, and I don't want to tell people what it is, but it's a genre one that I love so much, about these two people traveling and their relationship and stuff. But the way you kind of like develop your, the way weave the story out yet try not to tell everybody what those characters are, yet be able to bring them to the end with them understanding, oh, now I see what they are, right? And the journey of that character. How do you flesh a character out when it comes to actual novel writing, right? I mean, in comics, it's
Yeah.
easy for me. I go to my artist, go, this is what they want them to look like. This is simplified it, but like I have all this background listing of what they're supposed to be, which nobody sees. All they see is the picture. But you, with your writing, you're describing, you're giving them depth. You everything you think about. You most of, I mean, I'm sure you check out a few, but you have this long litany of information that you put into that page. How do you go about building that character from like just a such and such name, and now there's this huge world around them and the people
Yeah.
relationships that they belong to?
So that story you're talking about Blood Alcohol, the first story from the Blood Alcohol collection. So that's the story in which a South Island road trip turns murderous as alcoholic drifter Tracy bullies her lover, the giant Adam, into killing for the ultimate drink, child blood, while Adam fights to keep a secret, his young son. So the audience is challenged to get on side with this woman, skinny, volatile, alcoholic, druggy Tracy, who's also a vampire, and she loves drinking blood. The younger, the better. She's got addiction problems. She flies off the handle. She's like an Amy Winehouse, wild child sort of thing. But it's narrated by our gentle giant hero Adam, who he falls for her. He wants to look after her. He wants to protect her, and he can see that she's been treated badly by her dad, who sometimes feeds off her, and he's the one who cursed her with vampirism in the first place. And and her addiction problems stem from the volatile upbringing she had with her dad. The reader gets on side with that because Vicious Tracy, the vampire, she's nice to our hero. She's nice to our narrator. And and that's why he's on side with her, and she spoils him and she protects him, and she shows him this exciting world. Now, so you were asking about making difficult people into heroes. So this novel that I've been promoting, which is coming out with Lasavia Publishing, it's called Glass Barbie, and here's the logline of Glass Barbie. Cockroach Karl Copley, a crackhead crim with a small brain and a big mouth, convinces his former best friend Richie McMullan, who's now a squeaky-clean senior cop, convinces him that he can rescue Barbara Barbie Konstantinou, a high school crush apparently held for ransom by bikers in the sunny north of New Zealand. Problems pile up quickly, though. The troubled Barbie is happy to stay kidnapped. She doesn't want to go back to her privileged parents, and she reveals that there is probably a plot to milk her family's fortune. Over 2 wild weeks of love-hate hangouts and bungled rescues from Whangarei to Kaitaia to the Bay of Islands, our hero, Cockroach Karl, finds that he might be the only person honest enough to get Barbie back. So this the dude narrating this novel, Glass Barbie, maybe you can bring up the YouTube, me reading it on YouTube, and just show the cover. Should show the cover if you,
Is this it here?
Nah, you might. Maybe it might some might update.
Botur, writer,
don't play that.
author of Blood.
Let's not play that. On YouTube, if you type in Glass Barbie Chapter 1, you can bring it up. So anyway, Cockroach Karl, he's designed to be frustrating, but he's hilarious. We like him because of his sense of humor. He's a self-deprecatory guy. He thinks the whole world is full of snobs, full of people who have treated him like shit. He's only semi-aware of how much he rubs people the wrong way. He's sloppy. He smells. He's got head lice. He takes shortcuts all through life. Cockroach Karl becomes our hero because he really wants to rescue Barbie. She went off the rails in high school, and he wants to get back to high school because he hasn't evolved. He hasn't progressed with his life since high school. He wants to go back to high school bliss, and he also wants to find out why she went off the rails and why she went from privilege to prostitution and working off drug debts. Now we like Karl as our hero because, again, it's like a noir. It's painted in shades of black. we like Carl because lots of people are mean to Barbie, lots of people exploit her, but he cares for her. He's nice to her, and because we like him being oblivious to how many people are cruel and mean to him. He's irrepressible. He keeps going no matter how cruel the world is to him. He's got a good heart. He cuts a lot of corners. He shoplifts. He does drugs. He steals. He rips off his friends. He borrows things without putting them back. He irritates other criminals. But we like him because he's working for a noble thing, which is to try and do what he can to just wrap his arms around this trouble girl who's run away. So it's a really fun story to write. So that's a great example of a difficult person being lovable to the audience.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of reminds me of remember New Jack City?
Oh, I've got to be honest. I haven't seen New Jack City. Sorry, got to be honest. Dan Brader would be telling me off right now. I haven't seen it.
It's a classic. I remember seeing it when it was released. I can't remember if I saw it in the movies or not, or if I just saw it when it came out on VHS back then. But it's like the enabling of someone, right? And it's like, and we're like letting him, this cockroach dude get away with all this because he's got a novel goal. It's like we're letting a Joker get revenge because of what happened to him, and it's that whole, the humanistic view of, I guess. So how long is this book? I mean, it is a novel, right? So how long did it take you to write it? How did you get the idea?
I've drafted it more. Yeah, good question. So firstly, I've always had an interest in writing about crime and people who cut corners and get themselves into conflicts. Usually the crims I wrote about are trying to do something good, and they have a limited set of tools because their lives have given them a limited set of tools. They're uncouth. They're not great with their English. They don't have money. They've got criminal records. They can't get great jobs. They have to do community service. So when I moved to Whangarei in 2015, the only work I could find initially was being an alcohol and drug survey interviewer in the police cells. So it was a research project from Massey University's Social Health Outcomes Research and Evaluation Centre. And so my job was to sit down with people for up to an hour. People who had been arrested, people who wanted to break out of their cell, and sit down with them with the plexiglass screen between us, and run through this alcohol and drug survey, and they would tell me about their criminal record. They'd tell me if they'd done jail time. They'd tell me what they've been arrested for. They'd tell me all their demographic information. They'd tell me all the intoxicants they loved. They'd tell me how much they spent on the intoxicants they love. They'd tell me the street price of drugs and alcohol that they knew of. And then I would go out into the break room and I'd hang out with police, and I'd have my tea, my coffee, my breakfast with police officers. And I got to meet a good wide range of cops. And the cops were like a cross-section of society. Some of them were sweet and gentle and patient and generous with their time and forthcoming.
Right.
Others came across as like bullies and standoffish and unfriendly. A lot of them had a really good sense of humor. It was really interesting observing the camaraderie. So, and then I would go across the road and write this novel. And I was so negatively or artistically impressed by the poverty of Northland. When me and my wife moved up here in 2015, wife at the time, she's gone now. I had no idea how impoverished Northland was, because you visit Northland and you pass through. And maybe you go to the rich, fancy Bay of Islands, or maybe you go to Tutukaka and you see toothless hillbillies with 50 rusty cars parked in their front yard. You drive past their houses, but it may not sink in that this is a real issue for people. People are rural, people are disadvantaged. There's no university up here, small population. It's hard for healthcare to get out. There's no money floating around. There's no good jobs floating around. People are massively disadvantaged. We're stuck out on a peninsula that's far away from from where industry is to make money flow. Anyway,
Well, I
that's
But that's all due to the fact they removed two of the biggest factories that we had, which was meat and milk in the 80s, late 80s. It was Kaukau and like Bay of Islands and Mortar, especially where those both were, was the greatest place to live in the 80s. Because that's when I moved in. Like, I mean, sorry, not I moved in. That's when my mom and dad moved. You know, my dad got married to my mom from Fiji. 1980 is from 80 to 88. I watched it go from being the greatest place to the poorest place in New Zealand that I could think of. Because, and I blame it on those two factories being chased out, man. We had the biggest milk factory. We had the biggest AFCO, right? Now AFCO's kind of like smaller now. But imagine $600 in minimum in your pocket every week. And you're starting work at the age of 17, 18, and you're in there. Every week you have that much money in your pocket. Everybody is happy. It was the greatest place because, you know, you had executives living there, spending money there. We had the greatest, one of the most biggest fashion stores in Mordor of all places that people would come to visit, you know, buy there from, because it was such a rich place, so much money. It was a high quality. I think it was called Harrison's. Dude,
wow.
When you look at it now, it's like what happens when you remove a city of all its money, right? It becomes a shanty town, you know, and then all the houses get run down. Nobody has the money to build them up again. It's just so sad. I mean, like, I don't even like to go into town anymore when I'm there. But before it was just like, wow, it's just so full of life, vibrancy, flash cars, everything. One of my best friends, the Costas, his dad was executive at the factory, like high, and he had to move his entire family out to, you know, somewhere else. I've never seen him, you know, and that's just one family, one major executive family. You know, you had so many of them, man. All that top money was staying there, and now, you know, it's like they just basically took two factories and just the place just went down. But here's the thing. So having, like I said, like I grew up there. I was there till I was 15, 17 in that area. Like Moro is one of the most impoverished now because of that. But the people, you know, have always together, have always been great, and that's what you find in these areas, is that they have to rely on each other because they don't have what they used to have, which was like they worked, all of them. You came out of school, you went to work. It wasn't like you went on a dole. You went out of school, you went to work because there was work there, you know. And I think a lot of people don't understand how important it is to be able to work at a young age, get that instilled in you. Hey, if I work, I get money and I can buy all the cool things I want. You know, I can buy the Raiders t-shirt. I don't have to go and beat up someone for it because I know how much it's worth now, right? And I'm talking about the 80s because people used to beat up, in the 90s when people used to beat up, you know, Raiders, and people with the Raiders hats in the cities because all the Adidas shoes for their, that's what we call getting stopped. You got stopped, bro. You know, you get beat up for your baseball hoodie or your jacket or your cap or your Nike shoes because those are poor people on the street, kids beating up other people for clothes because they want to look trendy too. But that's, you know, like we're talking about, like why people behave the way they behave is because there's lack of money and resources, right? And then we go, oh, but they were allowed to behave that way when we do it with Joker, right? Because that's what happened. Like, no, how about get some jobs out there? Anyway, carry on.
So I can name novelist friends up in Northland who have written books where it's all more like celebrating the bush and the beach and the subtropical bush and the lovely country mansions and the orchards up here. Good luck to them for you know, sort of making out like things are mostly safe and wonderful. Glass Barbie sort of is like a pig squirming in mud. It revels in the mire. There's a lot of rust. There's a lot of crayfish cages. There's a lot of toothless people. We got bikers. We got pimps and prostitutes and smoking meth and stealing things and tattoo conventions run by Black Power. And
yeah,
so my book has a lot of fun and all this stuff. And I think there's only one other work of art that that sort of celebrates that interesting mixture of Northland of the good old fashioned down to earth community values, which you mentioned before. Plus the wrong-uns, plus the naughty people, getting up to no good, and that's far north. So there was that TV series, and then Angus Gillies, who's the Northland writer, wrote the non-fiction book explaining the lives of, explaining what all those criminals were up to, and how it was that they got contracted in to import an astonishing amount of meth. And he does an awesome job of explaining what it was like for the locals to become aware that was going on in the town. And the locals had such good morals and such good values. So that's really cool. So I've got people in my novel that are they are the white to my hero Karl's black. So their squeaky cleanness highlights how dirty he is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mirror, right? Because I think a lot of times, like with characters, we kind of see bits of ourselves in them, which is what endears them to us. And I think when you're writing these these characters and these books, what is going, people would go, what is he thinking about? How could you write such things about such people this such way? Is that what's going on in his head? And then is that what sort of person he is? Do you ever get that? Or is it like, okay, people go, yeah, he's a writer, he's just making this up and this is what it is?
I'm so past that, eh? I'm an entertainer, and you have to put yourself on the line and take risks to be an entertainer, eh? And it takes years to work out what to do with your shame and your anxiety about what people are going to think of you. So if you really own your work of art and if you're able to explain it and defend it, then that's fine. A certain percentage of people are going to get upset or offended or think that you're punching down, or they are going to think that you are the same as your characters and think that you're a piece of shit just because you're writing about piece of shit people and shitty behavior. And you have to accept that it's just a certain percentage. Maybe it's as much as a third, but that's not the majority. Most people will be grateful that you created a bold, confident work of art for them. Chuck Palahniuk, Alan Duff, Irvin Welsh, all these people who have created all the Quentin Tarantino, all these people who have created these really provocative works of art over the years have all been through that, and they've had to accept that there'll be some unfairness, there'll be some judgment where people think that they are a bad moral example just because there's bad behavior in their books. And but the job of the artist is to disturb the peace, as James Baldwin put it. And you're not going to have a breakthrough, memorable work of art unless you are being provocative and testing people and putting some spice on the damn thing, some salt and pepper.
I mean, there are way too many safe works out there, right? Like nobody's actually trying to step out of that safety, and that's what I feel like with your work. You are always stepping out of that. I mean, I think for me, I think New Zealand is, when it comes to from what I've seen and seen, it's quite bland, right? It's become very bland. Like the creative scene, like except for horror, right?
Vanilla. There's a lot of vanilla out there.
There's vanilla, right? Blandness out there, except for horror. Horror seems to be where everybody's pushing the envelope, where they're going, okay, let's step out. And I think this is what I've noticed internationally about New Zealand, is that they're so receptive towards New Zealand horror and just the genre of horror more than anything else, because we kind of stand out. We have this dark nature, this self-deprecating, this humor of ourselves. and just being willing to just step out and do creative things in the horror genre that nobody else is doing. And we're winning awards. And this is the thing, that we're not being celebrated by our own country, yet we're being celebrated by other people when it comes to the horror genre. And I think that's kind of sad because, wish there was more celebration of that, what is worth, thinking. Like, I remember, the other, I think I put a post out a couple of weeks back about, there's a movie, I can't remember what it's called now, but about colonial New Zealand. Must have cost hundreds of millions of dollars because, well, at least $100 million because of what it was. And yet you can make probably about 50 horror movies and blow the world away and actually bring in about 5 times the amount of profit because it's horror. And yet
they do have a good profit.
It was such a failure, because they spent all that money in one bucket that nobody really cares about. Because first, like, as me, as a film watcher, I do not care about the past anymore. Right?
The New Zealand Film Commission is woke. The New Zealand Film Commission is woke and communist. Yeah. So then we could have a whole other 1-hour discussion about that.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like it's an interesting one to be stopped at. That post. Sorry guys, I think Mike's got a problem with his internet.
History.
You should watch that later, dude. Like, you're like this on your screen. The whole New Zealand thing is woke.
I froze.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But that's a good place to be, right? Like, to have a governmental body, creative body that only leans one way, and wants to remind you of all the ills that somebody has done towards this country and its people, rather than going, hey, let's put out something cool and creative that everybody can enjoy and take part in. Yes, we know every country in any part of the world has a bad past, right? Amongst themselves, against each other. I mean, I know Fiji used to eat each other, right? Why don't we talk about that? Nobody wants to talk about that. Before the British arrived, and sort of put a stop to that. They were hunting Samoa, they were hunting Tahiti, they were hunting Tonga, Tokelau for meat, for protein. Like they'd be out on their ships and their canoes going from island to island bringing back meat. But then they won't say, hey, it was if they would be all wiped out if the British didn't arrive, whatever the reason, whatever they did, if they didn't arrive, none of us will be sitting here, right? I know I wouldn't be.
That'd be a great horror movie, a Fijian horror movie. It is time.
Well, I mean, there was one they did with like that zombie one in New Zealand, wasn't there? I can't remember. What was it called? Was it Dawn or something? Some New Zealand horror, zombie movie came out a couple of years ago. Deadlands? Was it Deadlands?
Yeah, well, that's a Māori story though. The Deadlands.
Yeah, but still, but that was still kind of like something a bit more, in the horror genre that was basic, that actually did well, right? Because I think
they made a whole series of it, which is incredible.
Because it was successful, right? I mean, this is like, look, anything over 5 is good, and 6, Torheza, the Deadlands, having something like this out there.
And Americans like it because it's exotic. It's cool.
Almost made $1 million. I'm not, probably on home video would have made more because it's something different, and it's not like it brings in the culture, but it puts a different genre twist on it. It's not like a blame game kind of thing. I think that's what people don't want to see anymore, is people blaming each other for the past. I don't want to see people blaming each other for the past. Everybody's past has got friggin' something to cringe at. But I think it's important to celebrate what works. And I think especially when it comes to books, with novels, with stories, comics, movies, music, if your music is good, let's celebrate that. That's why I like putting the Crooked Cops on there. It's such a good music, all right? It's such a mellow, uplifting song. You've got cool bands out here like
respect to Matty Fox, respect to Crooked Cops. That was cool.
Yeah, and they do a good job. I mean, like this, it's because it's all about talent, right? If it's good talent, then it should be celebrated, because that's how you judge. You gotta lift people up that are doing well in the community, because I think the worst thing you can do is like ignore talent. And it's like a dad, right? It's a dad saying, "Oh, he's interested in writing, so let's put him down for writing. Go outside and play, go outside and play rugby or soccer. Let's forget about you wanting to write, all right? Or he's interested in computers. Oh, no, ignore that. Don't do that. Go and do this." It's, I think talent, and this is what I like about the fact that what you guys are doing out here with Up North Writers, right? On Writers Up North, is that you guys are getting together and lifting each other up and putting out these courses and helping and learning and teaching each other how to write.
Stand by. I have a small child to collect. Hang on.
Okay. All right. So as we wait for give me a second here. As we wait for Mike to come back, we're going to be finishing up soon. So I think for me personally, I think that it's important to support young people, right? When they have interest in something wholesome and good. Say like they're interested in making movies on their phone, or interested in making movies and they want to get a camera, they like editing, or they like playing games, or whether the next step is like, hey, would you be interested in creating games, right? Would you be interested in if you're interested in drawing or something, if you have a child like that, or if you have a teenager like that, the best thing you can do is actually support them to the next level, get them the tools to do that, and not let them try to, struggle to find what they want. But it's better to support them. And I think you'll find that a lot of talent is destroyed in childhood because of lack of support and lack of resources. And I think I like what's happening out in the schools right now with the especially in the writing genre, right? I know there's a lot of support, in the arts at school, but especially now with the writing genre, with awards and stuff, like saying, hey, if you do good at this, there's a result at the end. So, Mike, as we finish off here, do you want to, we've got your, let me put this up and I'll get you to finish off with here for the next couple of minutes, and then we'll finish, anything you want to say, because we've got the list up. It's up to about 4,100, and you got 900 more to go. You got 2 days left. One thing I want to speak to you about is like this: you got 34 generous donors, and yet they put out 4,100 of the 5,000. How, who are these people, and whether do you think whether they would love to hand you a check anyway? If you didn't, if it doesn't make them up, how are you gonna,
So listeners, readers, firstly, please support my boosted crowdfunding to get 200 copies of Glass Barbie printed and brought into New Zealand. The book has been written and ready to go, but my publisher, they only do print on demand, so we need to pay to actually bring the books in. And I'll get you a book if you support this project. So please donate, please share, please contribute. I've been putting in the hard work, reading samples of it on YouTube. And as for where the donors come from, so there are other authors who want to give back. And like when you do generous things in the world, when you do favors for people, maybe it goes directly to someone, or maybe it goes around them, or maybe one person sees something that you've done for somebody else. There's a lot of generosity out there in the world, so it's astonishing who will reach into their wallet and help a project like this. And usually these people don't ask for anything back, and I have to remind them, hey, I do want to sing for my supper. I do want to read this book to you. I do want to get it in front of you. I gave away a free reading of a Halloween story halfway through this campaign. Story called Heaven is Hungry. So that required a lot of effort to get that published. That was a really good one. I'm always here to read samples to you. yeah, but please chip in, share the campaign, and help us close this thing out. Help us finish it by Saturday, so that the book can be with you. Yeah. Otherwise, all the donation money goes back, which would suck.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I was thinking. Like, if it doesn't reach the goal, is there any way you can contact those guys who have actually, email them, go, hey, look, would you still like to support me? And maybe I can raise something else, the rest of it some other way.
Yep.
And
yeah, that's doable.
good,
Or you can always just pay yourself out, put it on your own credit card. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think with these, especially if people are willing to support to that level, I think it'll be great if they, if it does what it doesn't, if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, people can actually contact you. And you're on YouTube. So I'm just going to put up that thing here. So I've just put, this is the channel. This is Mike's channel here on YouTube. Do check him out. He does do readings, so let me just play this.
Oh, yeah.
Glass Barbie.
I'm going to play it out on the way out. So Mike, do you want to say anything else?
Yeah. It's all right. Just throwing some ice cream. Now, yeah, play it out, and we can hear this voice reading samples of it. Cool. By the way, I run Creative Writing Northland. Anyone who wants help with creative writing, mentoring at any time, get in touch.
Awesome. All right. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll say goodbye to Mike now, and then we'll finish up with them, and then we'll play this on the way out. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mike, for your time. And wherever you are, guys, you're welcome, man. Have a great day, guys. If you're watching this on repeat, please do go and check out Mike's channel. Do check out his socials. Oh, actually, I forgot to put up. He's actually on. Where are we? Here we go. Let me bring this up. He is on. He's on Substack. But to add there, so there's you can check out his Substack, and it's Botur.substack.com. So that's info there for you guys as well to check out. So do check that out as well. All right, thank you, Mike. Catch you later, bud. All right, now for chapter 1, and please do go support him, and we'll play this out for the next 12 minutes. Hope you guys enjoy. And we'll see you soon. Ka kite ano, wherever you are. Oh.
Copley, a crackhead crim with a small brain and a big mouth, convinces his former best friend Richie McMullan, now a squeaky-clean senior cop, that he can help Barbara Barbie Konstantinou, a high school crush, apparently held for ransom by bikers in the sunny north of New Zealand. Problems pile up quickly, though. The troubled Barbie is happy to stay kidnapped. She doesn't want to go back to her privileged parents, and she reveals there is probably a plot to milk her family's fortune. Over 2 wild weeks of love-hate hangouts and bungled rescues from Whangarei to Kaitaia to the Bay of Islands, Crooked Karl finds that he might be the only person honest enough to get Barbie back. Chapter 1. Trying to be a mate the only way I know how. So I was strutting to the cop shop just before 5 a.m. and hold the general inquiries buzzer long enough to summon a piglet. Walking up to the counter all weary and groggy, picking a dried booger out of my eye. I'm here to speak to Snitchy Richie Little Dick, except I don't say that I'm here to see Snitchy Richie Little Dick. I actually say I'm here to see Richard McMullan, in case his pig pals don't know his special name. The dude hates being called names, if I remember correctly, and remembering is the name of the game. It's been 8 years since I've seen the guy, and considering the amount of substances I've smoked, my memory ain't the most reliable. Chances are we both got new bodies, and now he'll be Senior Constable Richard McMullan, 75 kilos, flat torso, responsible haircut, no tats. He's still a minger, though, as in half ginger, half Maori, white nose, cornflake freckles, hair the colour of rust. And to be honest, it's way beyond midnight. Whangarei is boring as an amputee peep show, and unless you got a belly full of crack, I found myself drawn to the lamplight with nothing to do except wind my old mate up for shits and giggles. I might unload certain underworld goss about a certain kidnapping. See if I can get paid as a confidential informant. Get some of those sweet witness protection hookups. Get me a new house, new threads. Hell, might even get me a labradoodle. Now, the sleepy cop minding the counter, some Indian guy, amazing the color of cops they got these days. He tells me that Senior Constable Richie McMullan is in his office and he'll be out shortly. They gave the prick an office? I know, he goes, rolling his eyes. I'd sort of heard through the grapevine that they'd made Richard a senior piglet. He must have risen through the ranks with hard, steady work and dedicated professionalism. Fucking try hard. Usually you only become a senior constable after 14 years, but it sounds like they made an exception for my old Richie Rich. I spotted the update on Facebook on my mobile. They gave him a big ceremony and shit, like it was the Carrot Top Awards, and he got named Ginger of the Year. Richie ain't been in the police force for 14 years, but what he has done is he's condensed 14 years of squeaky clean, goody good, suck up narc holiness into his 8 years till they gave him an early promotion. Fucking overachiever. He did all the profession development night classes he could, while I did all the periodic detention I could. PD for both our asses. So the Indian cop wanders off, and through a gap in the sliding doors behind me, there's a whisper of warm summer wind that touches my legs, and I can feel the sky begin to glow. It's December, baby, early summer. Can't enjoy the season without a best mate, though, can you? I don't appreciate being left standing in the darkest part of the night in a boring-ass foyer, so I drop my pie wrapper on the floor and look around to see what I can steal. I can't reach a whole arm through the layer of bullet-deflecting, intruder-stopping plastic that hangs down over the counter, but I can get my fingers through and snaffle whatever it is on the counter, which turns out to be a Hot B magazine. Now, Hot B is heat on the beat. It's a police association mag by coppers for coppers. There's got to be some sensitive information in the magazine. I reckon $100 to hand this over to the Hells Angels, I'm thinking. So finally, a new cop drifts up to the counter and says, "Thanks, bro," hit to its pig pal, and looks at me, and its mouth opens like a goldfish, bro. Oh, shit. It's Richie. And Richie recognizes. That's right, you so-called senior motherfucker. You remember me helicoptering my schlong in the pool changing rooms, year 10. How I taught all the boys that the trick was to jack it so it's hard first, so you've got maximum cock length to spin. I know that look on your surprised face, bro. We know each other inside out, homie. I take my beanie off and scratch the bugs out of my scalp. I guess I look a little different. Scars all over my skull, ink on my neck, skinny arms, big shoulders from doing push-ups at 4 a.m. at the bus station because I was too cranked to sleep. "Sup, chief?" I say to my oldest, bestest mate, secured behind 2 panels of plastic. Mr. Senior Constable is protected with a stab-proof vest, a walkie-talkie, a taser tucked into his belt, and fresh new pips on his light blue uniform. New threads, sure, but he's still a ginge, which means I still look down on the cunt. Up to Cockroach Karl, he goes, sticking his fingers in his belt, no handshake or nothing. "Look at you, all tattooed up. Nice earrings. Cheers. I got piercings down south too. That's a story for you. You picking up lost property, Karl, or..." "Nah, bro, I don't know, I thought we could, catch up or whatever. Just listen to a little Limp Bizkit, play a little Limp Bizkit. What do you say? I'm trying to be a mate the only way I know how, but I can tell I'm rubbing him the wrong way. Story of my life, bro. I seem to piss off 99% of people. Might be why they call me Cockroach Karl. What I'd say is you're wasting police time, which carries a maximum sentence of 6 months imprisonment or a $1,000 fine." He takes a step back from the counter. Down the hall behind him, I can see a smidgen of the office that he's come out of. It's the neatest fucking office I've ever seen. He's even got a potted fern by his keyboard, the pin dick. "Listen, there's this thing I wanted to talk to you about." I go. "It's about Barbie. Barbara Konstantinou from school, from our year. Remember her fams were on the rich list and shit. She got abducted like last month, bros. She's missing anyway. I was thinking we could, bounty hunt that shit. Bounty hunters, boy." "This person's name is Barbie, you're telling me?" Richie goes. "Barbie is in the children's doll. That's what we used to call her, remember? The Greek chick. Barb's, Barbed Wire, Barbarella, Conan the Barbarian. You know her, bros. I'm telling you, from school. Look, there's legitimate work I need to be prioritizing right now." Richie goes, peering past me, hoping there are people wanting to report lost cats. Anything better than my annoyingness. Too bad for him. I'm in shorts and a basketball singlet at 5 in the morning, holding a pie at the only 24-hour man police station in 10,000 square miles. I need Richie. I don't got nothing else to limp it onto. Legitimate, eh, Rich? How's legitimate working out for you? Policing's been good to me, he goes. How's being whatever you are? Oh, I'm an artist, I go. You ought to follow my socials, Rich. Well, kind of a big deal these days. Oh, I've done a bit of stand-up comedy down in the Big Smoke. I've done a few worlds too, and I've got my truck license. You can do free courses in jail. It's pretty sweet. Oh, I'm mostly an influencer, though. Of course you are. Richie repositions a piece of paper to make it look like he's busy tidying things. He wipes his fruity little ginger mustache with a finger, like I'm a bogey that he's smearing off. Oh, well, thanks for coming by, Carl. Have a good... I want to help yous out. This hot-ass fugitive Barbie, either she's on the run or the run's on her. I want to bring her in, know what I'm saying? Click me some of that sweet, sweet reward money. Remember how rich your folks were, them immigrant Greeky people? The pillars on their mansion and shit? They had 2 maids, brothers. 2. And the dad ran for council, you remember that? You know about the reward? I know shitloads more than it looks like I know. Look, we don't use the term fugitive, Carl. Somebody is not a fugitive unless deemed so retroactively by the court when they fail to... Bro, I'm getting cold standing here. Let's grab a brewski. I want to talk cash cow. Make a plan. What? You're suggesting a beer now? It's 5:40. I shrug. It's nighttime though, isn't it? Nights when you're supposed to drink beer. It'll be dawn in 20 minutes. People are saying there's 10 grand up for grabs if we bring her back, bro. You could use 10 grand, couldn't you? I get a 10 grand bonus if my name is attached to charges leading to successful prosecution rates of 75% or greater. Around here, we do things the honest way, Carl. I've no interest in dirty money. There's steam on the plastic divider now. I'm desperate. Meanwhile, Rich the snitch is slowly backing away, going back to his faggy little fern. Look, listen, the money ain't dirty. It's her folks' money. It's not about the money. It's about impressing a female, Carl, because your genes instruct you to pursue any faint hope of reproducing. Exactamente, I tell him. I go to high-five him, but my palm smacks the invisible plastic. Bro, you remember how fine Barbie was? Carl, okay, look, I am aware of the case. Obviously, I'm aware Barbara Konstantinou has been listed as missing. CIB's handling the reward. I suggest you liaise with them when you have something useful to share. Until then, you'll have to turn your body 180 degrees, put one leg in front of the other, and walk away, my friend. Nice seeing you, but I really do have to. I hooked up with her little sister, Shayna, the flat one. Gave her some pity attention, you know? Well, I liked Barbie way better, though. So there was a little off about Barb's, you know what I'm saying? Like, she got traumatized, but in a good way. It made her all loco and wild, like, oh no, Amy Winehouse sort of thing. Watch yourself. Senior Constable Richie growls. What's the relevance of all this anyways? Barbie's a homegirl. That's the relevance. She's old school. You get the Konstantinou sisters and you and me together and we could have us a mini Sacred Heart reunion. He takes a deep breath, almost says something, walks a few meters down the hall, puts a hand on the door of his office and hovers. The dude's kind of shuddering, like when you get really pissed at a toddler, but you're not allowed to drop kick it. I guess I'm the annoying toddler. All right, Carl, I finished my shift at 8, but it's still too early to be drinking alcohol. Shit, watch me drink then if you want. Jovial Judd pub at 8 then. It's over the road. I'm aware of where the jug is located. I stuck around my neighborhood after we graduated. I didn't leave my community to go and be an influencer, as you claim. He shakes his head and retreats, pausing in the corridor to fold his arms and yarn to some lame-looking cops. The Indian one, plus a girl and a fat cop. Dorks united. I see Richie hands a book of Sudoku puzzles to a piglet, and the piglet hands back a book of word finds, and Richie shuts his office door real firm. Me? I walk out of the sliding door of the cop shop. It is a month until Kiwi Christmas, and summer dawn is making the air thick and warm like one of them carb farts when you've only been eating Maccas for a month. There's a pub meters away. I've got a valuable magazine down my pants, and I am looking forward to wheeling and dealing and catching up with my favoritist bro. I didn't really dig the dude's snobby fucking straight-o attitude just now, but I know that he'll come right. Because back in school, I took all the risks while he followed like a meek little sheep, and he always appreciated it after. I just hope some of the old Richie is left.